All right. Hi, my name is Norhan Albaj. I've been student teaching at Goodrich Middle School this semester, and I am excited to share my growing professional knowledge with you today. So let's get started. My competency statement. I am competent at reflecting on my teaching to better engage students throughout participation in the classroom. So I'll really focus on the active engagement piece throughout my lesson and how students can better participate in a lesson to keep them motivated and engaged throughout the lesson. Some guiding questions I will be following with is, how do I identify what I have left to learn? How can reflective practice inform my practice in order to increase student participation and actively engage them in the classroom learning? And also, what can I learn from my students to promote professional growth? So all of these things I will be touching on throughout my artifacts and as I present my evidence to you. So these are my artifacts, an overview of my artifacts, how my artifacts and evidence demonstrate my learning. So artifact 1 will reflect the instruction was more teacher-centered rather than student and peer collaboration. Artifact 2 reflects gradual release for student participation. So it slowly gives students that opportunity to engage in the lesson and participate in their learning. And artifact 3 reflects on how the teacher gave students multiple different opportunities for actively participating in the lesson, and this will get students to collaboratively work with their peers as well. My first artifact here is the first lesson that I did for my math lesson plan, and here I talked about how I was trying to teach a math lesson plan and had spelled out an engagement aspect of the lesson, but I really didn't focus on student and peer collaboration. I really fell through on this part because not only was it more teacher-centered and I was lecturing at the students more and they were writing down like what I had been talking about, but they didn't really get the opportunity other than like once throughout the lesson to really talk with their peers about the math expressions and the problems. And when you're doing math, you want to always engage your students as much as possible to actively participate in the lesson, so that way that you're not losing focus of those students, but also it creates that higher order thinking and learning as well. So that's a part that I missed the first time around when planning for a lesson, but then I realized as I was reflecting back through that, hey, I really need to actively engage my students more, and so how can I do this? And you will see as I move forward throughout my presentation. All right, and then artifact 2 here talks about a fourth grade lesson plan for recycling. This can be actually tailored for any grade level. So we talked about what types of things can be used in compost, what kinds of things can be recycled. And lo and behold, we recycle every day without realizing it, even from entering the kindergarten classrooms. So we have those recycle bins in the classroom. We also learn that various things in our school cafeteria get recycled and get to be turned into compost. Here, I wasn't incorporating all of my learners to actively participate throughout my lesson, so I didn't engage my ELL students. So a lot of my ELL students didn't know what compost even meant, or what kind of products are made, like for paper products, what aluminum products are. It was hard for me to explain that with just words rather than showing visuals for my ELL students. So I needed to capture my lower level students and also my intermediate and then my high ability learners, as well as my general education classroom. So I fell through at that point, but I did try to incorporate more small groups of partners, but it wasn't enough where they were, I wasn't bringing in the whole group dynamic. So I didn't have that discussion at the end where the students were actually learning from others and chiming in on their thoughts. And so that wasn't creating that higher order of thinking and learning, and also being able to have more student-led conversations, whereas I was taking more center stage still. And so that's where I learned to really incorporate all of your learners in your classroom, because you never know what the student can bring in from their background knowledge and their outside knowledge other than what you teach during the lesson. So there's students that can explain things a little bit better than you can using their kid-friendly language versus you trying to explain things in 3 different ways, but a student might not understand it, and then their peer says something and it just clicks right away and it just makes perfect sense. So moving forward with that, in Artifact 3, I had my student teaching experience at Goodrich Middle School, like I stated, and this time I really actively engaged all my students in the classroom, so all of the students were participating, which was more like student-led discussions, and also as a team we collaborated as professionals in the group, so all of our team meetings we had other teachers that would chime in and tell us and explain things of what things went well in their classroom. So we did a lot of think, pair, share. We had students do hand up, stand up, pair up, where they had to mingle around the room for a couple of minutes and then raise their hand and stand up and walk around, and whoever they high five would talk to and about the lesson, and then incorporate those leading questions. So that way you're fostering more of that participation piece, and that way you keep students actively engaged, and that way they don't get bored throughout the lesson and they don't lose interest, but they're asking those higher order level of critical thinking questions as well. So that was really important for me to understand that students do learn best from their peers and not just only from their teachers. And so fostering that discussion and keeping a safe and open learning environment for students to voice their opinions and also feel valued was really crucial. So I learned that it was very imperative for students to really learn from others, but also not only from their peers that they were sitting next to in the classroom all the time, but also people around the room too. So girls were teamed up with other boys, and also ELL students were teamed up with regular students in the classroom as well. So that really fostered that growth and also that discussion piece, and that which ultimately included more participation and actively engaging in the lesson. And then moving forward with that, I continue talking about how I brought students as a whole group at the end. So not only were they participating with other students through discussions throughout the lesson, but they also were able to come back as a whole group and discuss their thoughts and ideas. A lot of students, I figured, especially being ELL, are shy to speak. So when they have a smaller groups, they're able to voice their opinions a lot easier because they're not watched by the whole class, and some of them may not have all the academic vocabulary. So when you're presenting in a small group, they're more comfortable to share and participate, and other students are willing to listen to them as well. And so then as we moved forward with Bloom's taxonomy, the higher order of thinking is creating. So not only were the students able to share with partners, but also people around them in the room, but they also were able to create a project. So we got to present with a wee video. We also did a newspaper article, and they had a choice of doing also a newspaper article, video, and a presentation on Google Slides as well. So they had multiple different options to present their work. So we didn't limit them on what they could create as long as they were able to showcase and demonstrate their understanding. And that was a great way for them to then whole group or to come in as a whole group and to share those experiences, but also they were able to present in smaller groups, especially for those students that felt more comfortable presenting in front of 2 or 3 peers rather than the whole class. And so that was really great to actively engage students and have students show their creativity side, and also have student-led discussions at the end of each presentation rather than the teacher always leading every little aspect of the lesson for participation. All right, and then to synthesize my artifact 1, I learned that students must take an active role in their learning rather than a passive role, which is crucial because it can cause students to lose interest and not participate as much as we would like them to. When students are learning new math skills, like identifying an expression that represents a real-world situation and writing a real-world situation that represents an expression, it's imperative as a teacher to have students actively engage in the lesson by working collaboratively among other students. And so that really helps them to build their background knowledge also, but also have more student-led discussions rather than just also teacher just telling them, oh, this is how it's going to be, and more student involvement overall. with that kid-friendly language. And then artifact 2, I learned that when you're planning a lesson, not only are you teaching specific set of skills to include, but you're also incorporating more peer-to-peer collaboration. And research shows that more peer-to-peer collaboration gets students to understand things at a higher level of learning rather than just at like a standard level where they're not really thinking creatively and asking those higher order thinking questions, which ultimately ends up having students participate more in the lesson. So reflecting back on the lesson, I would say that it's imperative to keep students actively engaged in learning, but also being able to ask and answer questions throughout the discussion, having students chime in with their peers and talk about the various aspects of recycling, and also talk about their experiences in the real world. So not only in their classroom, but what they do outside of school to recycle, whether that's a water bottle that they recycle or an aluminum can that they recycle at home. So that was really great to showcase the students' background knowledge and have their thoughts heard and valued too, and respected in the classroom as well. And it creates a dynamic of social structure that students can feel comfortable talking about the things that they do on during their daily lives as well, not only in the classroom but outside the classroom. So bringing that aspect in is very crucial. And then my third artifact, I realized that when I was teaching that there's multiple ways to engage students in a lesson, not only through partner sharing, but also in small groups, and then doing the hand-up, stand-up, pair-up, and also collaborating with other peers in their group. And then also being able to create a project to present their learning really hits that creating aspect of Bloom's taxonomy. So I learned that there's multiple different methods, and learning from other teachers what works best in that professional aspect really helped me learn from veteran teachers, and even teachers that I've been teaching for 2 or 3 years that bring in fresh new ideas to the table about how to actively engage students and get them to really think and focus on the lesson, and that really minimizes the behaviors in the classroom as well. So it works hand in hand with getting students to really focus in on the lesson, but without them really having to lose interest in the subject matter at hand. All right, and then just a few quotes that I like to live by as a teacher. Those who know do, those who understand teach. So Aristotle is the provider of this quote, and I really believe strongly in this because those people that know how to do things just do it and go about their daily lives, but those who really understand it at a deeper level love to teach other people how to perform that task or skill set. And then another thing that I like to touch on, a teacher takes a hand, opens a mind, and teaches a heart. So here, teachers are a gateway to success and a stepping stone for each and every child's future. A teacher presents the past, reveals the present, and creates the future. So one by one, we are impacting students' lives every day. And a little caustic about teachers, usually teachers are terrific, energetic, they're able, they're cheerful, they're hardworking, they're enthusiastic, and they're remarkable. So teachers really have to possess all those qualities in order to really shine in the classroom, but also to get students motivated and participate and actively engage throughout their lesson. Thank you very much.